All right, Doug, good morning. Today we're going to have a economics lesson. I will be a student and hopefully lots of our viewers will be too. Want to hear about the business cycle, why it matters, what it is, why people should care about it.
Yeah, I actually think this is a very important topic to get a grip of. Uh, Nobody talks about the business cycle in the mainstream media, at least any that I've been watching. And you can't say anything really valuable about it in the 30 seconds to 2 minutes that they give anybody on talk shows or whatever. So this is important because people wind up thinking that, well, they wind up thinking all kinds of things. They wind up thinking that the government can or should control the economy. They don't know why things are happening. They think it's like magic. Look, uh, the best way to explain the business cycle is to, instead of trying to put it in the context of a country of over 300 million people, why don't we put it in the context of a small town where we can understand things a little bit better? And I've always liked to use the People's Republic of Santa Monica. Uh, so let's go there for a minute and suppose that everything's in Santa Monica is going along. People are working, people are trading, they're producing, they're consuming, starting new businesses, old businesses fail. But things gradually get better. Okay, but let's suppose that a politician is elected on a platform of making things a lot better, of getting the economy going again, of stimulating it, because an economist told him that he was in a position to do that. So what might he do? Well, since it's a republic, Santa Monica, a little republic, maybe he decides that on Sunday night, his central bank will print up $10,000 and deposit it in everybody's bank account on Sunday night. So they wake up Monday morning and they're $10,000 richer than they were the previous day. Well, everybody's happy. That sounds good. I mean, who doesn't want an extra $10,000? All right, now our job as an economist is not to see just the immediate and direct effects of everybody getting $10,000 of extra money, or currency actually, but what are the indirect and delayed effects, which happen to be the business cycle? So let's figure this out. In Santa Monica, let's zero in on one industry. Everybody that doesn't already have one wants a swimming pool. Weather's nice. So, but they couldn't afford one before. Now they can afford one. 10 grand has magically appeared. So what happens? First thing that happens is everybody gets on the phone and the telephone company immediately thinks that it's reach out and touch someone. Ad campaign is finally paying dividends. And there's so much traffic that they have to hire some extra operators to handle all the calls. But the real action is happening with the swimming pool companies because everybody wants one of them. And let's say there's just one swimming pool company in Santa Monica, and it's doing, businessman's business. But now they're just overwhelmed. And well, what are they going to do? Supply and demand. Let's say they raise prices 50% because they can get it. Nothing wrong with that. And entrepreneurs see, wow, this guy's coining a lot of money. Maybe I should start a swimming pool company. Might go down to the bank and try to borrow some money. But remember, that $10,000 is sitting in the banking system now. The banks are awash in money. It's not just the individuals that got it, but it's in the bank. It's deposited in the bank. So the banks have loads of money. And banks have to loan money if they're going to make money. So they can see that the swimming pool company is making tons of money. They're happy to make a business loan to new entrepreneurs. And stockbrokers see that this is a growth business too. It's coining money. So they, and there's all this money that people have to invest in the stock market. So they float public issues. And all of a sudden, between bank loans and stock market floats, there's 20 swimming pool companies, and they're all doing pretty well for a moment. So what's wrong with that? Well, there are further consequences. Swimming pools need concrete and copper pipe. So the concrete company gets lots of orders. It has to hire more workers to make the concrete, and it in turn sends out orders to the sand company and the cement company, and they're overwhelmed with orders. They have to hire more people and dig more pits in the ground to get raw materials. The copper company, well, they're going to charge more for copper because there's huge demand for it. Maybe they're going to open up a new copper mine at lower grade that wasn't economic before, but copper prices are up too. But everything looks pretty good. And with all of the new hiring that's being done just due to the swimming pool industry, forget about the other industries, well, guys that were pumping gas and parking cars before have got high-paying jobs driving heavy equipment. I mean, they're making big money now. So they go down to the car dealer and place an order for a big, expensive new SUV. I mean, in fact, the guys that own the swimming pool companies that are benefiting from the bank loans and the stock floats directly, they go out and buy, Gucci suits and gold chains, and everybody's doing well, including the people that say, you can see that this is wonderful. There is a boom. It is fantastic. What is wrong? This is like, now
well, it seems like the politician worked. It's the politician's got to be like, well, see?
It does. It works. It's pretty clear. I mean, it's wonderful. People are making more money. They have more stuff. Stock prices are up. It's fantastic. So let's pretend now for a moment that we're 6-year-old kids and we're looking at one of those things that they show to 6-year-olds. What is wrong with this picture where you pick out the things that aren't normal? Well, this is where an economist gets to work. For one thing, after a while, everybody has spent their $10,000. And after a while, the banks have made all the loans to all these companies and many, many others going down the line. So not only that, but prices are a lot higher now too because of the demand, but it's not demand pull or cost push inflation. This is all nonsense. Basically, what it is the money supply, let's say, has gone up by 20% overnight, as have general prices. And there have been a lot of distortions cranked into this. People that were eating rice and beans figure they can now afford chicken and beef. So rice and beans prices collapse and chicken and beef prices skyrocket. So this is another distortion being cranked into the economy, which is going to cause further misallocations of capital. So what happens now? Everybody that wants a swimming pool has got one. We've in effect stolen a lot of demand out of the future. So now the demand for swimming pools drops. And where the market could previously sustain one swimming pool company, now it's got 20. Now it can't even sustain one because there's been so much demand taken out of the future. And a lot of people that have used, the good times to buy big houses and big cars find since prices have gone up and all these guys that were hired to build pools and dig copper and all the rest of this type of thing, hey, their services aren't needed anymore. So now they get fired. So now we've got an unemployment situation to deal with besides. So where things went from being really looking pretty good, now they're actually pretty bad. People found that they bought a bunch of stuff that they thought they could afford that they couldn't. And now all the people that were hired are fired and they're unemployed. and the swimming pool companies go bankrupt en masse, and the loans that the banks made to them are defaulted on. The banks are in trouble too. This is pretty ugly. So what do people do? Well, they go to the government and say, look, you've got to do something. The gold chain retailers say, if you don't do something, this is going to blow the economy, can never recover from. And the Ferrari dealer says, the auto industry is devastated. Everybody's complaining, you got to do something, do something. So what's the government do? Since price level has gone up about 20%, let's say, since the general supply of money went up 20% overnight. Well, this time, let's do it again. It was so much fun. So this time they print up $12,000 and put it in everybody's bank account, and the cycle restarts again. And but it's more than that. What about all those unemployed people that had lost their jobs? Some of them are going to get their jobs back, obviously, but maybe there should be a safety net so that they don't have to go back to parking cars and pumping gas right away. So the government might want to create some more money and have an unemployment program. And it's got to bail out some businesses, create more money to bail out the banks. Can't have the banks fail, then people would lose their savings in it. And big swimming pool companies, if they fail too, they're too big to fail. There'd be hundreds of unemployed. Can't do that. Better bail them out too. So this is how it works. And the same thing happens. The cycle repeats and the government bails it out again. The cycle repeats. Now, why can't this go on forever? Because it seemed like a good idea. Well, because eventually you reach a fork in the road where if they keep printing up money, they're going to wind up with a Weimar Germany style runaway inflation. Just printing up money, adding zeros, or if they don't bail out these companies and banks and the rest of it, you're going to have a deflationary collapse. So the idea, instead of realizing this was a stupid idea to try to stimulate the economy, to try to fine tune it. And you notice how these so-called economists, nobody uses this term fine tune. That used to be such a popular term where they actually thought they had control of things. They could push the levers and, pull the, and these idiots think that the economy is like a factory where they can control things by pulling and pushing levers. Actually, the economy is not like a factory. It's closer to being like a rainforest. And when you start doing things in a rainforest, wiping out one species and feeding another species and cutting down, you wind up destroying the whole thing. So forget the factory analogy, which they think they can fine tune. It's like a rainforest, which is far too complex to even figure out, much less try to fine tune. So that's the juncture that we are now. And there were a couple times in the past when they should have just let the whole thing collapse and deregulated at the same time and abolished the Fed. That's never going to happen because, the government does not want to give up any power. They actually think they know what they're doing and they like the power. So what's going to happen is they're going to print lots more money to stave off corporate collapses and massive unemployment and disguise a drop in the standard of living. So this is going to be really, really ugly. It doesn't look like it right now. It looks like everything's reasonably mellow, and they're blaming anything that is abnormal now on the COVID hysteria. Yes, the COVID hysteria has made things worse, no question about it. It's been like the pin that's broke the bubble, or I like to say like the sledgehammer that broke the bubble, more accurately. But that's all it was. It was just, it speeded up the inevitable. So now Joe and Kamala have said that once they're in office, they're going to immediately print, I think the number that he's banding around is $3.4 trillion to distribute to who knows who's going to get $3.4 trillion. Well, I guess the airlines and Hertz Corporation and restaurants, who knows? That's a lot of money. In
Green
fact,
tech, Doug, green tech.
yeah, 3.4 trillion. You know, this is the problem with like looking at currency bills from third world countries. I carry in my wallet a $100 trillion bill from Zimbabwe with the signature of my friend, and he is a friend of mine, Gideon Gono, who is the director of the Central Bank of Zimbabwe, who printed that $100 trillion bill up. And it's confusing because when you get all those zeros, you're put in the position of a primitive person, 2, 3, many. And, you know, I mean, all those zeros, that's like really many. So people get confused. And I'm trying to think, 3.4 trillion, and let's say we have 340 million people in the country. Can we do the arithmetic? How many dollars is that going to be for every living American? Let's see, 340 million, 340 billion would be everybody gets $1,000 a piece, 3.4 trillion. Every man, woman, and child, every baby, you know, every person on his deathbed, if they actually print up $3.4 trillion to bail the economy out, which they're going to do, I have no doubt, that means $10,000 for every living human in the country, presumably illegal aliens too. I don't know. That's a lot of money. $10,000 a bit, but they're not going to get that much. They're going to get some table scraps, and most of that money is going to go to big corporations, and who knows what kind of schemes. It'll go to the government to hire more employees. Yep. This is a disaster. So yeah, that's how the business cycle works. Now, if anyone didn't get anything or miss something along the way, play this again and figure out where I'm wrong and ask me a question to explain it.
Yeah, I think
that's the way it works.
So it's essentially a boom bust cycle that is caused by distortions in the market that are injected into the marketplace by the government.
It all begins with the state. I mean, this is actually the root of the problem that conservatives absolutely don't get. In fact, a lot of libertarians don't get. They believe that the state, the government, is a fixture in the cosmic firmament. We must have it. It's always been there. It always must be there. It is necessary. It's helpful. The answer to those things is no in all cases. It's not helpful. It's actually purely destructive. So yeah, this is why. Look, as an anarcho-capitalist, I don't think the state serves a useful purpose, and we've covered this before. Since it's pure coercion, the state should do nothing if you're going to have a state, but protect you from coercion. Implies an army for coercion outside of its borders, police protect you from coercion inside its borders, and a court system to allow you to adjudicate disputes without resorting to coercion. Okay, if that's all it did, I could live with that. I don't have a problem. That's fine. However, those three things are probably too important to the conduct of a civilized society to leave to the state as an institution and a kind of people that inevitably are drawn to the state. Mm-hmm. So that's how I arrive at being an anarcho-capitalist, quite frankly. And nobody ever talks about the basics. They just try to fiddle around the edges, but the cancer is there, and the cancer keeps growing. Because, the prime directive of any living thing, from an amoeba to an individual, a corporation, or government is to survive. And that generally means to grow. And you can't stop the government from growing because it's not a market force. It's a coercive force. It's based on pure coercion. Sorry to get into that little sidebar lecture, but when you're talking about economics, I think it's good to get right down to the basic.
I love it. And I really like the rainforest analogy because the whole ecology there that just in its complexity, it's I think it's a great metaphor for the way that an economy actually functions, the way it can successfully grow and flourish. It requires these fine balances, and there's not a human can't step in and, kill off a species in there or introduce a new species and not expect it to have damage that you can't even imagine, to have an effect you can't even understand.
Yeah, but they'll never use that analogy in college economics classes because that would mean that you don't need a president and a secretary of treasury and to do all these things. And,
where would all these Goldman Sachs executives work if they where would all the Goldman Sachs people work if they didn't have the head of the treasury?
Well, that's a good Goldman Sachs, would be just a little firm where occasionally some guy that wants to start a company would go to them and they'd look at it and see if they can call up people and raise money from their savings to float the stock. It wouldn't be a giant vampire squid, wouldn't be.
Exactly. All right. Well, I think that was great. If the viewers here have any questions about this, about the business cycle, about economics in general, if you have any other topics you'd like Doug to cover within that category, let us know in the comments. And we appreciate your time. We'll be back with questions tomorrow. Thanks, Doug.
Thanks, Matt.